Paul McCartney began writing I Saw Her Standing There in 1962 when he was 20 years old while returning from a Beatles performance in Southport. His starting idea was a modern rock and roll version of the traditional song As I Roved Out, also known as 17 Come Sunday. Biographer Mark Lewison traced the first arrangement to October 22nd, when McCartney worked it out on an acoustic guitar at the family home of Rory Storm, whose band had recently employed Ringo Starr. 2 days later, Paul continued writing during a trip to London with his 17-year-old girlfriend, Celia Mortimer. She may have helped put that particular age into his mind, but there is no verified account of the dance described in the finished lyric. The safest conclusion is that the song created a fictional dance floor romance from the people, music, and dating experiences surrounding Paul at the time. About a month later, McCartney brought the unfinished song to John Lennon in the front room of the McCartney family home at 24th Lynn Road. Paul's brother Mike even photographed them working there with acoustic guitars and a school exercise book containing the lyrics. The original opening used a predictable rhyme about the girl not being a beauty queen. John immediately recognized that it sounded weak. Then the two replaced it with the much stranger and more suggestive line that follows the girl's age on the record. It was a small change, but it gave listeners something to wonder about for the next 60 years. Paul wrote the main song, and John's job was partly to notice the moment when an ordinary lyric needed to become more memorable. The song's most exciting musical feature was not entirely new. McCartney built its racing bass part from the bass line in Chuck Berry's I'm Talking About You, a song that the Beatles already knew well enough to perform in Hamburg and on the BBC. Paul later admitted that he had used the same notes because they fit his new song perfectly. This was less like secretly copying a finished composition and more like an apprentice rock musician reusing a favorite piece of musical machinery. The Beatles were still a working club band at that time, and they were absorbing ideas from Barry, Little Richard, Carl Perkins, and anyone else whose records can make a crowded room move. So really, McCartney just placed Barry's bass pattern beneath his own melody, chords, and lyric, and created one of the most recognizable bass parts on the Beatles' first album. The group recorded I Saw Her Standing There on February 11, 1963, during the famous session in which they completed most of Please Please Me in roughly just 12 hours. They attempted 9 takes, but producer George Martin decided that the first complete performance had the best energy. The hand claps were added afterward, and even the famous opening count was borrowed from somewhere else. What actually happened was that Martin cut McCartney's more excited count in from take 9 and attached it to take 1. So it sounds like 4 young musicians charging naturally into a perfect performance is really a carefully constructed studio illusion. The song became the opening track of Please Please Me. On March 22, 1963, it introduced the Beatles with no slow buildup, just McCartney counting and then the whole band crashing in right behind him. Later that year, Capitol placed it on the American B-side of I Want to Hold Your Hand, which allowed it to become a US hit in its own right. Its story is simple, but the record behind it is wonderfully pieced together. There's a traditional folk idea, and a possible memory of a teenage girlfriend, and a lyric rescued and changed by John, the bass line borrowed from Chuck Berry, and lastly a count-in that was lifted from a rejected take. I Saw Her Standing There sounds spontaneous because several people worked very carefully to make sure that it did.